exactly are you here?
After 20 years of being treated like a ugly, useless loser and laughed at by his own team, he finally walks away from his A-rank party. But God have different plans for him. Yuke runs into a group of girls who turn out to be none other than his former students, now a talented party which filled up full of baddies and needs a real daddy.
What?
Sorry guys, I mean a leader. They welcome him in without hesitation. After that, Yuke's hidden talent starts coming out.
I won't let you down.
Everything started after the party finished a dungeon raid that went well. During the break, Yuke suddenly slammed the table and said he was done, complaining that the pay didn't match the work he was doing. Instead of taking him seriously, the rest of the group laughed it off hard, acting like he was useless anyway, just like some of you.
Emotional damage!
The next day, Yuke was already out looking for a new job, feeling like someone who got kicked out with no backup plan. At the guild counter, the receptionist Mamoru was shocked to see him, since he had been part of the strongest party in the city, but she still handed him a form. At that moment, Marina rushed over and thanked him for training her team in the past. When she realized he was broke and looking for a job, she offered him a spot in her low-rank party. Later, Yuke met Silk and Rain, his former students, who were shocked that a B-rank adventurer like him joined a new D-rank party. But guys, I think Yuke was happy, because he was the only boy in the group.
Stop it. Get some help.
After that, the group set out on their very first mission, which was to gather magic iron ore from the dungeon. As they moved through the area, Yuke noticed Marina trying to scout ahead using nothing more than a cheap wooden stick. Seeing this kind poverty made him cringe, because the situation screamed low budget. Without saying much, he pulled out a high-quality detection lantern designed for professionals, instantly making the search much easier. The girls were amazed to see the big lantern.
Oh my god!
However, Silk quickly got worried and pointed out that the oil needed to run a lantern like that was usually expensive, and could easily wipe out their entire GDP. Yuke calmly told them not to stress, explaining that he had made the oil himself through alchemy. Before anyone could even process that, he suddenly warned them to stop. Out of nowhere, monsters appeared. The girls reacted instantly, jumping straight into combat, while Yuke stayed behind and enhanced them with his magic. Thanks to his support, the enemies were wiped out in moments. Marina couldn't hide her shock at how powerful he really was, but Yuke brushed it off like it was nothing special. When they reached the second floor, they were attacked again, this time by undead zombie. Even so, the party handled them easily, clearing the threat in a single burst. After the fight, Yuke spread holy water across the ground, which stunned the girls since that kind of item usually costs a fortune. Once again, he revealed that he had made it himself. Hours later, after fighting more monsters and collecting ore, they realized they still didn't have enough magic iron. Yuke suggested taking down the floor boss so they could move deeper into the dungeon and reach the 6th floor. The girls were instantly terrified, knowing how dangerous a floor boss could be. Yuke, however, told them not to worry. On the 5th floor, as Yuke prepared to face the boss, he released a drone to record the battle. Before entering, he asked the girls what they called their party, but they admitted they hadn't chosen a name yet. On the spot, Marina suggested the name Clover, saying it matched their group, and everyone agreed. Yuke raised a protective barrier, opened the gate, and faced the boss head-on. Casting multiple spells at once, he slowed the monster down and crushed it instantly. The girls cheered as they opened a chest full of magic ore, proudly declaring their first mission is accomplished. The next day, the girls suddenly told Yuke he should be the leader of their party. He tried to turn it down and said it felt weird, but they wouldn't drop it. In their eyes, he had more experience. But guys, I know he had no experience with girls like my friend, who is a 40-year-old V-card holder. Also, the girls tells him he'd been their teacher before, so having him in charge was the obvious choice. While they were talking, Yuke thought it over seriously. If he became the leader, he could watch them closely and protect them from the dangerous stuff they'd run into later.
Wait a minute!
If he became the leader, he could watch them closely and
What do you mean by that?
protect them from the dangerous stuff they'd run into later. With that in mind, he accepted the role. Half joking, he told them to call him out if he ever started acting like some clueless old guy bossing everyone around, which made the girls laugh. Meanwhile, Yuke's old party, Thunder Pike, was getting wrecked in a different dungeon. The monsters there were stronger than they expected, and in the middle of the fight one of their members got badly hurt. Realizing they couldn't win, they retreated in a panic. The leader carried the injured teammate and shouted to the others, asking if anyone had a healing potion. Nobody did, because stalking that kind of thing had always been Yuke's job. Later, Yuke sold the loot his new party had gotten from their last quest, and took the money to share with them at a bar. He didn't notice that Thunder Pike were also there, sitting at another table. They were busy yelling and blaming each other for how badly their last run had gone. As usual, they dumped everything on the new support guy who'd taken Yuke's spot. Fed up, the guy snapped, called them losers, and quit on the spot. Hearing the shouting, Yuke felt a weird sense of deja vu. He looked over and realized it was his old party just a few meters away. Shocked, he wondered why they were even there. Right then, a highlight video of his recent fight with a floor boss popped up on the big screen in the bar. His new party was surprised, the stream had already gone viral. Thunder Pike saw the clip too and immediately got salty, complaining that Yuke was getting full of himself in some low-ranked group. Yuke and the girls kept celebrating their win and ignored them. In one corner, a fatso sat alone, glaring at Yuke with obvious hate, though nobody really knew why. The next day, at the Adventurers Guild, Yuke was trying to pick a quest that would give the three girls both solid experience and a good reward. The receptionist suggested a C-rank request to collect 3 stones from a waterfall. Yuke was surprised it was even C-rank, because it sounded simple enough to be a D-rank job. Because of that, he figured there had to be some kind of catch. The receptionist then explained that a large magic beast had made the area its territory. Hearing that, Yuke thought this quest might actually be perfect for boosting the girls' evaluations. Right then, the girls showed up. Yuke tried to explain the danger and break down the details, but Marina quickly accepted the quest without really listening. The other girls agreed just as fast. Seeing they were all fired up, the receptionist printed out the request for them and went to process it. Yuke finally told the girls that a dangerous monster was hanging around that area, and said they still had time to back out if they wanted. But Silk refused right away, reminding him they needed the points from this job, and even said they'd be fine as long as he was with them. Hearing that, Yuke dropped the warning talk and told them to go get their gear ready. A little later, the receptionist came back with the stamped quest form and casually mentioned that their last stream had already passed 10,000 views, and people were spamming comments waiting for their next run. Yuke was a bit shocked by the number, but he agreed to broadcast this mission too, saying he wanted the girls to get more attention and recognition. Meanwhile, that fatso from before was secretly tailing Yuke, still mad that Yuke existed. Basically, when Yuke left the guild building, he noticed footsteps behind him, so he slipped into a side alley. The stalker finally stepped out. It was the same guy from earlier and told Yuke to quit Clover. Yuke turned him down, saying he'd literally just joined last week. The guy snapped, pulled out his sword, and yelled that he'd tried to join the girls' party before Yuke, but they'd ignored him. As soon as the blade came out, Yuke quietly set a spell on the ground under his feet. Then he turned like he was going to walk away. The guy lunged to attack, but the magic triggered, his footing vanished, and he face-planted so hard, he blacked out on the spot. Later on, Yuke asked the girls about this dude, and they said he'd been pestering them for a while. His actual skills weren't anything impressive, so Yuke just dropped the topic and switched back to talking about the quest. He explained that since they had no idea what kind of creature was waiting for them, he'd start the stream the moment they entered the dungeon. That way the guild could watch in real time and send help if things got out of hand. Once they reached the forest, Yuke sent his magic drone up right away to start the broadcast. As they walked deeper in, looking around and wondering where the monster even was, a massive creature, something called a Zarnag, stepped out to block their path. Yuke was stunned that a top-class beast from the frozen north was just casually standing there, and instantly judged that his team wasn't strong enough to take it head-on. He ordered the girls to retreat, and told Marina to focus on guarding the others. She refused, and the rest of the girls backed her up, saying they'd fight at his side since it was clearly too much for him alone. Their determination caught him off guard, but he reacted fast, boosting all 4 of them with a physical enhancement spell as they got ready to clash with the Zarnag. The girls rushed in first, but the monster completely overpowered them, knocking everyone out of the fight except Marina, who was barely still on her feet. Yuke realized this was bad and decided there was only one kind of magic that had a real chance of stopping it. He asked Marina to hold the beast off for just a little longer while he focused everything on casting his ultimate spell. Yuke waved his hands around for a bit, finished his chant, then told Marina to step back. A second later, he fired a huge magic blast straight into the beast. The hit tore into it and messed it up badly, But somehow, the thing was still standing and came charging at them anyway. Rain reacted fast and called down a lightning strike on it. Even after getting fried, the monster refused to drop, which completely stunned Yuke. Realizing they couldn't waste any more time, he yelled for Marina to rush in and take its head. Marina didn't hesitate. She dashed forward and sliced through its neck cleanly, like she was cutting something soft, and the monster finally went down for good. Right after the fight, Yuke felt lightheaded from burning through so much mana, but he was still happy. He knew this stream was going to put a big spotlight on the girls, since normal adventurers weren't supposed to take down a monster like that Zarnag. Back in the city, people watching the broadcast were freaking out that a low-rank party had beaten the Zarnag at all. Simon, the leader of Thunder Pike, had seen the stream too, and it just made him furious. About a week later, Clover got summoned to the guild master's office. While they were waiting, the girls got nervous, whispering about why he wanted to see them. Yuke said it was probably about the Zarnag, since that quest should have been rated at least B rank, and the guild had tossed it at a D rank group like them. Benwood finally came in and tried to act all scary and serious, but Yuke calmly told him to cut the fake tough guy routine. Benwood ended up smacking him on the head like a proud dad, happy Yuke had dropped the overly polite attitude. After that, Benwood told them to sit and asked Yuke what he thought was really going on. Yuke said it might be an overflow, so they needed to look into it right away. Benwood's assistant rushed off to start dealing with it. Marina, totally clueless, asked what overflow even meant, so Yuke explained that it's exactly what it sounds like: too many monsters building up in one place. He went on to say that if they left it alone, it could turn into a stampede, where hordes of monsters pour out toward towns and wreck everything. In the end, Benwood stood up and told them the guild would handle the investigation from there, and he apologized for putting them in such a dangerous situation in the first place. The girls stared at Yuke, wide-eyed, and told him he really didn't need to do anything extra for them. They were already happy just being in the same party as him. Benwood cut in and said that even if you pretended Yuke wasn't there, the three of them were still strong enough on their own. Because of that, he was thinking about bumping the whole group up to C rank. Yuke asked if that wouldn't cause issues with the rules, but Benwood explained that the guild association had already signed off on it. They'd also taken into account that someone of his level was leading them. Yuke, confused, said, "I'm only B rank, though." Benwood just looked at him and told him to quit acting like that. The prismatic missile he used to bring down Zarnag was a completely new spell nobody else could pull off, so from the guild's point of view, he was basically at A rank already. Right there in the office, Benwood officially promoted him and handed over a form for him to sign. The girls practically exploded with excitement. After they left, they all sat together, crowding around Yuke and hyping him up for becoming higher rank. Then they counted up all the money they'd earned from the Zarnag fight and realized they'd finally reached the amount they needed for the base they'd been saving up for. That night, while Rain was pouring Yuke a drink, she suddenly asked him what his dream was. The question caught him off guard, so he asked why she wanted to know. Rain explained that since they'd hit their first big goal, they wanted to hear his dream so they could decide what to chase next. Yuke thought for a moment, then said he wanted to challenge the deepest floor of the dungeon called Achromatic Darkness. The girls almost spat out their drinks when they heard that. It was the only dungeon with a strange gate that led straight into the underground. Yuke told them he wanted to reach the edge of the world and actually see it himself. One of his uncles, someone he'd always looked up to, had tried that same challenge and died there. And ever since then, Yuke had secretly wanted to follow that path one day. The girls immediately said they should go there together, but Yuke told them it wasn't that simple. They'd need official permission from the government. And on top of that, their party would have to be recognized as A rank. Instead of backing down, the girls got super fired up and decided their new goal was to help Yuke make that dream real. Over the next month, Clover kept clearing quest after quest and blew up in popularity among adventurers. Thunder Pike, on the other hand, kept screwing up their own runs and got more and more bitter. They never admitted they were the ones at fault and just kept whining that all the new recruits were trash instead. Meanwhile, Jamie from Thunder Pike sat alone in her room, feeling terrible as she watched Clover's flashy dungeon streams. Seeing how smoothly Yuke and the girls were clearing dungeons only made her feel worse about how badly her own party was doing. Around that time, the Thunder Pike idiots finally started to realize that Yuke had actually been really important. They talked about inviting him back and even paying him more, since money had been a big reason he'd left them in the first place. While Yuke and the girls were on their way to visit a legendary adventurer, they suddenly ran into Simon on the street. Yuke told the girls to head inside ahead of him, then turned to Simon and bluntly asked what he wanted. Simon asked him to return to Thunder Pike and promised he'd help Yuke chase the dream he'd always talked about when they were younger. Yuke didn't flinch and turned him down on the spot, just like your crush in high school, guys. Trying to twist things, Simon said the party was struggling because Yuke left, and that Yuke needed to take responsibility for the mess they were in. Yuke shut him down immediately, said he wasn't coming back, and walked off to rejoin Clover. A few days later, Yuke brought the girls a new request from a battle gear company called Earthy's. The job sounded simple. They would clear a dungeon while wearing Earthy's latest armor set, and the whole run would be recorded and used as a promotional video. The girls got hyped right away and started touching up their hair and faces, wanting to at least look a bit cuter on camera. As they read through the terms, they noticed that any armor they used for the mission would belong to them afterward. That made them even more excited, since Earthy's was known for high-quality gear. They accepted without hesitation. When they asked which dungeon it was, Yuke told them it would be Ion's Ruin, in a city called Qualto. On the day of the quest, the girls showed up fully equipped in their new armor, and Yuke was honestly stunned by how different they looked. They were full of energy as they stepped into the dungeon. Yuke explained that this place only had 4 floors, and their goal was to reach the 4th level and then pass through into an abandoned city-type dungeon at the bottom. When they reached the huge open shaft in Atrium, Yuke said they'd be going down by the stairs. Marina groaned and asked why they couldn't just hang a rope and slide down faster. To show her why, Yuke picked up a small stone and dropped it into the middle. It immediately sparked in midair. He explained that Atrium had turned into a kind of labyrinth, and that Soph's distortion wouldn't let anything simply fall straight through the center. Right then, Yuke noticed Rain had been quietly sulking and asked what he'd done this time. Marina pointed out that Rain had changed her hair, ribbon, and that this clueless guy hadn't even noticed. As soon as he heard that, Yuke quickly complimented the new ribbon, and Rain's mood flipped as she hugged him with a happy smile. As they moved further into the dungeon, Yuke noticed a strange patch of floor glowing softly, almost like a portal. Instead of stepping on it, he pulled out his long staff and prodded it first. The second, the tip touched the light. Sharp spikes shot up from the ground and walls, and the girls went pale, realizing they'd have been turned into skewers if Yuke hadn't checked it. They went on ahead, and soon ran into a bunch of orcs blocking the path. The moment Silk saw them, she tensed up and reached for her bow, since orcs were natural enemies of elves. Yuke told her to relax for a moment. He cast a physical enhancement spell on everyone, and, with all of them attacking together, they wiped out the orcs in under a minute. After the battle, Marina picked up a scroll that one of the orcs had been carrying. Yuke examined it and said it was a memorandum of revelation, a special item that can bring out hidden abilities. Silk was confused about why such a weak monster had something that rare, and Marina casually suggested they just sell it. Yuke shook his head and said selling it in that damaged state would be a waste, deciding instead that he'd repair it using alchemy. They all agreed Marina should be the one to use it, since she was the one who needed a power-up the most. A little while later, a treasure chest appeared, and during their break, Rain was quietly obsessed with the magic bag they'd pulled out of it. They kept moving through the dungeon, while Yuke rambled like a tour guide about its history. Eventually, they reached the 4th floor. Yuke explained that shadow stalkers were supposed to guard the gate leading down into the abandoned city dungeon, but no one had seen one in more than 10 years. Right as he was saying that, Marina suddenly spotted a shadow stalker and called the others' attention to it. Everyone got scared, but Yuke calmly told them it wouldn't attack anyway because there was a barrier stopping anything from passing through. While Yuke was still talking about the barrier, the shadow stalker suddenly slipped straight through it and landed right in front of the group. He froze for a moment, then hurriedly cast a thick, layered shield around them as everyone got ready to fight. The monster smashed through that defense with a single strike and sent Marina crashing into the floor. Shocked, Yuke stepped up to face it directly. Rain ran over to help Marina while he rushed the beast again, this time covering himself with another barrier. That one shattered just as fast. Realizing normal shields were useless, Yuke changed tactics and activated Blink Shadow, disappearing and reappearing behind the creature. He loaded several enchantments onto his weapon and swung for what he thought would be the final hit. But the Shadow Stalker suddenly turned and fired dark magic at him, blasting him away. The other girls rushed in to protect him, and Rain tried to heal Yuke while still supporting her friends. Even with that, the monster dodged their attacks and managed to slice through all of them in return. It then charged up a deadly combo aimed straight at Silk that would have killed her. but Yuke dashed in and yanked her out of the way at the last second. Furious that it had almost wiped out his whole party, he unleashed a rapid chain of spells, destroying its weapon and leaving it exposed. The three girls immediately followed up, unleashed their strongest techniques together, and finally drove the creature back into the shadows for good. When the battle ended, Marina jumped on Yuke's joystick. "Sorry guys, I mean to hug him," and Yuke asked Rain what she had learned about it. She explained that the Shadow Stalker was an undead with unstable, twisted mana that shouldn't exist at all, which meant this was another case of an overflow. Marina asked what they were going to do about it, and Yuke said they should clear the quest first. Then he'd report everything to the guild so they could investigate properly. With that decided, they kept walking and talking like usual until they reached the gate, leading into the abandoned city dungeon. Once the dungeon job was wrapped up, Yuke regrouped with the girls after filing his report at the guild and handing over the recording of their run. He told them the staff might call them in for an interview about what happened, so they'd need to stay in that town for a couple of days. Since they suddenly had free time, they decided to just walk around and explore the unfamiliar city. While Clover was chilling, Thunder Pike was still paying the price for kicking Yuke out. They took another quest, complained the whole way through it, and still managed to fail again. Back at the counter, the receptionist warned them that if they kept messing up like this, the guild might drop their rank. She told them to swallow their pride and stick to easier quests for a while. That set Simon off. He yelled that they were A-rank adventurers and shouldn't be treated like rookies. The staff shot back that their results didn't look A-rank at all. Later on, the party sat slumped around a table in a bar, stewing over what the receptionist had said. One of them suggested they ask Yuke to come back now that he'd built up a name for himself. Simon agreed they needed him, but said they had to put something in front of Yuke that he couldn't ignore. He claimed the best way to grab Yuke's attention was to take on achromatic darkness. The others were stunned. Simon explained that since Yuke had always dreamed of going there, he'd definitely react if they used the dungeon as bait. His idea was to team up with another group and stage a fake challenge of achromatic darkness, just serious looking enough to lure Yuke in, without them actually committing to it. Most of them thought it was a smart plan, but Jamie looked disgusted and clearly wanted nothing to do with it. Meanwhile, Yuke and the girls were touring properties with a real estate agent, looking for a place they could turn into their party base. The agent showed them one house and then said he'd take them to see a second option. On the way there, the girls noticed Yuke seemed a bit tense and asked what was wrong. He admitted that Thunder Pike's place was nearby. The moment they heard that, they told the agent they'd just go with the first house instead. Yuke was stunned and tried to insist they didn't need to change plans just because of him. But the girls said they had zero interest in ending up as Thunder Pike's neighbors anyway. They went back to the first property and started setting it up as their headquarters. Out of nowhere, the girls told Yuke to pick whichever room he wanted. That completely threw him off. He didn't think it was right to live under the same roof as them when he was the only guy in the party. They joked that they trusted him exactly because he looks like a 40-year-old V-card holder. That night, while they were eating, a news segment popped up on their TV, announcing that Thunder Pike and a few other parties had been chosen to lead an investigation into achromatic darkness. Yuke immediately focused on the screen. After thinking for a bit, he told the girls that, yeah, it really had been his dream to go there, but the dream had changed. Now, what he wanted was to reach the Obic Gate together with them and livestream the whole journey. Soon after that, a letter arrived, asking him to support the upcoming expedition into achromatic darkness. He headed over to the guild to check what it was about and found out the request came from Thunder Pike. He turned it down again. I think guys, he is rejected, boys more than the girls. The next day, Simon marched up to Yuke, visibly angry, demanding to know why he turned down the request when his dream had basically been served to him on a plate. Yuke answered in a flat tone that he wasn't interested in going, at least not together with Thunder Pike. That only pissed Simon off more, and he started blaming all their recent failures on Yuke leaving. Yuke snapped back that they were the ones who made his life miserable back when he was still in their party. Simon then admitted that if Thunder Pike kept going like this, their rank would drop and the whole group would be finished. Yuke calmly said that whatever happened to Thunder Pike now had nothing to do with him. Hearing that, Simon finally realized there was no hope left of fixing things. 2 weeks later, Yuke met Benwood in his office to talk about new overflow cases appearing in several different dungeons. Benwood said a stampede was probably on the way, and that was likely why the government had approved an investigation into achromatic darkness. He added that he wanted to put out a nomination quest for people to join the investigation team. Yuke asked why he was offering that kind of job to a C-rank party when A-rank groups were already involved. Benwood just replied that those A ranks were basically weaklings. Yuke repeated how dangerous a chromatic darkness really was. At that moment, Benwood pulled out a magic scroll and handed it to him, saying he wanted Yuke on the mission because he was someone he could actually trust. Yuke said he'd talk to his party first and come back with an answer. Later that day, he met the girls and told them he was planning to turn it down. He said they still weren't ready for a place like achromatic darkness. Silk disagreed and said they were strong enough to at least go as scouts, and since they were going to aim for the Obic Gate someday anyway, this was the perfect chance to check the dungeon out in advance. The others agreed with her, but Yuke still hesitated. That was when they realized he was scared of losing them during the expedition. He admitted it, saying they were the best party he'd ever been with, and he didn't want to lose this experience. The girls told him to believe in them, reminding him that they also wanted to help push him closer to his dream. Their resolve caught Yuke off guard, and he finally agreed to accept the quest. They went back to Benwood to give their answer, and Yuke added that they'd need a scout for the mission. Benwood, who had already planned for that, introduced an energetic bunny girl named Nene and said she would be their spotter and support during the job. Later, when they finally reached the entrance to achromatic darkness, the group was surprised to find the dungeon gate literally hidden beneath the Adventurers Guild itself. Benwood explained that the guild building had been constructed right over it to act as a seal. As they got ready to go in, Benwood updated them on the situation. Of the 3 A-rank parties originally assigned to this investigation, 2 had already backed out, and only Thunder Pike was left, and even they were acting suspicious. Clover had kind of expected something like this. Before they stepped inside, Benwood reminded them that their only objective was to scout the dungeon and report back, nothing more. They started their live stream and officially began the mission. Nene walked at the front, then suddenly turned invisible to scout ahead for enemies. The others were impressed and a bit shocked at how hard she was working, like she was putting in way more effort than she needed to. She came back shortly and reported nothing unusual, so they kept moving. As they walked, Yuke mentioned that when Thunder Pike entered the dungeon about 2 weeks earlier, they only reached the 8th floor before retreating. While he was still talking, Nene signaled that there was a monster up ahead. There was no safe way around it, so they had to fight. With a coordinated assault, and Yuke's prismatic missiles finishing the job, they took the creature down in one clean exchange. Soon after, they reached a rest area and spotted a treasure chest. Nene unlocked it, and inside, they found several rare jewels. Yuke told Silk to stash them in her magic bag. He also noticed a small black box tucked into a corner. Inside was a ring that felt strange. He couldn't tell what kind of artifact it was. He decided to keep the box and show it to Benwood later, thinking it might be connected to all the weird incidents lately. Then he gently took Rain's hand and slipped the ring onto her finger, completely catching her off guard. It felt way too much like a proposal. Yuke quickly explained that it was called a sanity ring, an item meant to keep the wearer's mind stable. They eventually reached the stairs down to the 2nd floor and took a break there. While they rested, Yuke asked what everyone thought was off about the dungeon so far. Marina said that out of all the monsters they'd fought, the shark-headed one felt totally abnormal. Nene agreed. That led Yuke to say that both the shark-headed monster and the treasure chest with rare items and keys that weren't in the official logs were clear signs that something was wrong. The girls asked what he meant, so he explained that running into a monster that obviously didn't fit the dungeon and finding a chest full of rare artifacts on the 1st floor was way too strange to ignore, and made the whole place suspicious. They immediately asked what they should do next, but Yuke told them to relax. It was still only the first day of their mission. They decided to head back toward the exit for now. On the way out, Thunder Pike suddenly showed up. Simon asked Yuke why he had turned down their invitation, if he was going to come here anyway. Yuke answered that he was there because the kingdom had officially given Clover this task, unlike Thunder Pike, who were only trying to stroke their own egos. Thunder Pike started acting arrogant again, saying Clover should be grateful to have an A-rank party around. Simon stepped closer to Yuke and demanded his stream data and all the information he'd gathered so far. Silk moved forward, clearly pissed, but the Thunder Pike guys insulted her for being a dark elf, mocking her race for its bad reputation. That was Yuke's breaking point. He reached for his sword and said that Silk was his family. Simon tried to frame it as an offer of alliance, but Yuke replied that just the idea of teaming up with Thunder Pike made him feel sick. Stunned, they watched as he turned his back on them and walked away with Clover. While all of this chaos was unfolding, useless people were talking about what's going on. A couple of days later, Benwood called Thunder Pike in for a meeting and laid out the situation clearly. Several powerful groups in the kingdom had officially accused them of misconduct during the dungeon incident. Simon, riding high on his ego, brushed it all off. He claimed their team hadn't done anything wrong, and instead blamed the lower-ranked party for being disrespectful toward an A-ranked group. He went even further, once again, trash-talking Silk like it was a joke. That was when Benwood had enough and dropped him with a single punch, fast and clean. Benwood told Simon he clearly didn't understand how bad things were. Because of Thunder Pike's actions, the kingdom was at risk of ruining its diplomatic relationship with the Ellen Kingdom. Enraged, Benwood grabbed Simon by the neck and demanded that the team hold a public apology stream. He also warned them that losing their adventurer status was very much on the table. Even after all that, Simon stayed stubborn. He mocked Yuke's group, saying they'd be helpless and unsafe without Thunder Pike backing them up. Benwood immediately shut that down, explaining that Clover was officially being treated as an A-rank party for the mission. In short, they didn't need help from people who were already considered dead weight. Later that night, Simon couldn't calm down. The thought of publicly apologizing burned at him non-stop. That's when an overweight, sketchy-looking man approached him with an offer revenge against Yuke and Clover, while also helping him get what he wanted. Simon didn't hesitate for even a second, and leaned right into the idea. Elsewhere, Marina told Yuke she had finally figured out how the strange black box worked, but she needed his help. She asked him to hold it with her and focus on everything he knew about her. As Yuke closed his eyes and concentrated, the box suddenly shined and transformed into a long sword right in their hands. Yuke was stunned and asked how it happened, but Marina dodged the explanation and messed with him instead. The following day, the group entered the dungeon again for their second run. This time, their goal was to reach the staircase leading to the third floor and report anything suspicious along the way. While exploring the second floor, they were shocked to find themselves in what looked like a wide outdoor zone under a bright sky. It felt completely wrong for a dungeon, even though stories did exist about dungeons copying outdoor environments. Yuke found it especially unsettling, since areas like this usually didn't appear until much deeper levels, around the 20th floor. That raised an even scarier thought: either this zone showed up way too early, or the deeper layers were somehow moving upward. Yuke asked Rain to use her telescope eye, and she quickly spotted a lone house sitting far away, which instantly raised red flags. They decided to head toward it. As they got closer, Yuke noticed the sun hanging above them and hoped it was just a magical light source. If it turned out to be a real sun, they'd need to hurry before it set or risk triggering some kind of hidden danger they weren't prepared for. When they finally reached the building, they realized it looked brand new, which instantly made the situation feel wrong. A fresh house had no reason to exist inside a dungeon. As Yuke stayed alert and studied the place, an old woman suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The group froze in shock, confused about how someone like her could survive in a dungeon. The elderly woman calmly said it was a long story and invited them inside so they could talk properly. Yuke didn't buy it, knowing how dangerous dungeons were. He politely refused the invitation, since trusting anything in a place like this was a bad idea. Right after that, the sky darkened in an instant. The small house twisted and expanded, turning into a massive castle. At the same time, the old woman transformed into a hot baddie spirit. Yuke immediately recognized her as Lady Persephone, the goddess who controls the cycle between life and death. Lady Persephone declared that none of them would leave the area alive. Without panicking, Yuke calmly lowered his weapon and told her they would meet again once his life in this world ended. She stepped closer, touched his face, and said she would remember him. Suddenly, a glowing curse pattern spread across Yuke's skin. Realizing what was happening, Yuke shouted for everyone to run before their mana was drained completely. This place was part of the land of the dead. They rushed back to the resting area and barely escaped. After catching their breath, Yuke realized he had been cursed, but he reassured Marina, Rain, and Silk that it wasn't something to panic about. Once they returned home, he could visit a temple to remove it. Yuke then explained that the area they entered was known as the Great Field, a location mentioned in an ancient legend. The words he spoke earlier were the same ones used by the story's hero, which saved his life. He went on to ramble about theories surrounding the realm and how it was connected to a rare dungeon phenomenon known as achromatic darkness. Rain was stunned that they had already encountered something this extreme on only the second floor. Yuke suggested a scary possibility they might not actually be on the second floor at all. Instead, they could be on the 30th floor, the same level the Vanguard team cleared 2 decades ago. He added that the floors they passed through might not match the official records. Marina agreed with Rain's idea, saying the dungeon itself hadn't changed shape. Instead, the stairways were likely skipping floors entirely. Yuke felt they needed to leave immediately, but the girls told him to relax. They suggested resting first to recover their strength before making any decisions. They all fell asleep, and after a long clapping session, Yuke was jolted awake by a hard kick from Simon. He realized his hands were tied, and that Marina and Silk were unconscious nearby. Simon smugly revealed that Rain had been fitted with a slave collar, meaning she could be controlled however they wanted. Tell me in the comment guys, what should you do if have the control? Simon then pulled out a document and demanded Yuke sign it. The paper blamed Clover for everything that had happened earlier. Yuke refused at first, but Thunder Pike threatened to force Rain into horrible situations, or hurt Silk to prove they weren't bluffing. With no other choice, Yuke agreed to sign. Just as he was about to put his name down, the ground suddenly began to shake violently as a massive earthquake tore through the dungeon. Yuke shouted that they had to escape right now because the dungeon itself was starting to fall apart. But Simon didn't care at all. His only focus was forcing Yuke to sign the paper. The shaking grew violent, cracks spread across the ground, and suddenly Simon and his teammates lost their footing and fell through. Yuke rushed to Marina, Rain, and Silk, trying desperately to wake them up, but they were completely out cold. He reached for his magic bag, only to realize Simon had stolen it earlier. Before he could react, the floor beneath them gave way as well. At the last second, Jamie used her magic to slow their fall, letting them land safely. This stunned the rest of Thunder Pike, who couldn't figure out whose side she was actually on. Out of nowhere, a group of orcs appeared. Jamie instantly grabbed Yuke's magic bag and tossed it back to him. Without wasting time, Yuke activated a scroll that held the orcs in place, stopping them from advancing. While that worked, Jamie removed the sleep spell, sealing the girls. Yuke then prepared the exit scroll to teleport everyone out of the dungeon. Before activating it, he told Jamie to make sure Simon and the others escaped too. Jamie froze, unable to understand why he would help them after everything they had done. Yuke calmly answered that punishment wasn't his call, it was something the law should handle. Just before the spell could activate, Simon grabbed Rain and threatened to strip her of everything. Yuke panicked, realizing he couldn't cast another spell without canceling the portal. That's when Jamie stepped in, smashing Simon to the ground and pinning him, freeing Rain. Simon shoved her aside and tried rushing toward the portal. When his teammates begged him not to abandon them, he shocked them unconscious without hesitation. Seeing this, Jamie attacked again, using a spell that paralyzed Simon completely. Thanks to that, only Yuke, Marina, Rain, and Silk made it through the portal. Left behind with the remaining Thunder Pike members, the orcs began closing in. With no way out, Simon injected himself with a vial he had hidden away, transforming his body into a monstrous form. Back at base, Yuke and the others met with Benwood and watched a recording Jamie had left behind. In it, she apologized for everything she and Thunder Pike had done, admitting how wrong they were, even after Yuke tried his hardest to protect them. She confessed that she deeply envied the bond between Yuke and his new team, and wished she could have been part of it too. Jamie also revealed that all of Thunder Pike's crimes had been recorded on a magic gem. Watching the message crushed Yuke, and he blamed himself for leaving her behind. However, Marina, Rain, and Silk told him the truth, none of this was his fault. Benwood then revealed that the guild had received an emergency distress stream coming straight from the dungeon. When he played it for everyone, they immediately recognized Jamie's voice, warning about the dangers of achromatic darkness. Benwood said the guild was debating whether they should send a rescue team or not. Without hesitation, Yuke volunteered to go alone. Benwood reminded him that he still hadn't fully recovered, but Yuke refused to back down, saying Jamie was his friend, and he couldn't abandon her. He even asked for another exit scroll, but Benwood responded that the final decision on sending help hadn't been made yet. After Benwood left the room, Yuke quietly stated that he would save Jamie himself no matter what. That's when the rest of Clover stepped forward and said they were going with him. They owed Jamie their lives. Rain added that when the slave collar had been placed on her, she was the one in the most danger, and Jamie saved her just as she had taught them. At that moment, Yuke used a dark spell, instantly breaking the slave collar off Rain's neck, shocking everyone watching. Yuke then admitted that since being cursed, he had gained new spells and abilities he never knew existed. The mark on his face meant he had become Persephone's disciple, suggesting she had taken interest in him that day. Just as they prepared to head out, a knock came at the door. The ugly man showed up, acting confident and assuming Thunder Pike had succeeded. Clover shut him down immediately. Rain placed the slave collar on him and warned him to stay away, while Yuke added a dark curse that would make his blood boil if he ever got close to Rain again. As Clover prepared for battle, they realized they were missing the most important item, the exit scroll. Right then, Lucent arrived and handed it to Yuke, asking why he planned to return to achromatic darkness. Yuke's answer impressed him, and before leaving, Lucent said he was glad Yuke understood what truly mattered as an adventurer. Afterward, the girls explained Lucent had once lost half his party in a dungeon, which made Yuke understand why he trusted him. Before they set off, Benwood asked if this was truly what they wanted. Yuke replied without hesitation that they had to save Jamie at all costs. When Benwood asked how they planned to find her in a dungeon that changed routes every time, Yuke explained his theory that the dungeon responded to the subconscious expectations of those who entered it. As they moved forward, everything played out exactly as Yuke predicted. The dungeon led them to a tower where Jamie was being held. Blood stained the ground, and they rushed forward, only to find her badly injured. As they tried to help her, Simon suddenly appeared, shocking everyone. A massive wave of dark, twisted energy poured from him. Simon had become an undead zombie. Simon lunged forward without hesitation. Marina stepped in to stop him and managed to slash his arm. But it didn't matter, his hand regenerated instantly. Realizing normal attacks were useless, Yuke jumped into the fight himself. No matter how hard or how often Yuke struck him, Simon's body kept restoring itself again and again. With no other option left, Yuke unleashed his strongest move, an enhanced prismatic missile fused with Persephone's cursed power. Simon absorbed the spell effortlessly and mocked it, assuming it was another harmless attack that couldn't erase him. But moments later, his body began rupturing repeatedly, bursting non-stop as if it were falling apart from within. Even though the spell wouldn't outright kill him, it was designed to continue endlessly until death, leaving Simon stuck in a permanent state of breakdown. Desperate, Simon pleaded with Yuke, reminding him that they had grown up together as children. Yuke didn't answer. He turned away and rushed to heal the badly wounded Jamie instead. Soon after, shadow stalkers emerged and began devouring Simon. Yuke quietly said his final farewell to the person who had once been his friend. A week later, at the Adventurers Guild, Benwood announced the consequences. Clover would be suspended for 1 month, and their records would be reduced as punishment for entering the dungeon after it had been sealed. Benwood also took responsibility and accepted a pay cut for allowing it to happen. Jamie, meanwhile, lost her adventurer license for a full year due to her involvement with Thunder Pike. Another week passed, and Yuke met with Mamar to formally invite Nene to join Clover permanently. Mamar blushed and asked if Yuke was sure Nene could keep up with such a dangerous team. Yuke replied that Nene had been performing so well, he had forgotten she was only supposed to be with them temporarily. Mamar agreed right away and said she'd handle the paperwork, then joked that they should probably tell Nene first. She opened the door, and Nene fell flat into the room, caught red-handed for eavesdropping. She quickly apologized, but Yuke told her to relax and give him an answer already. Nene admitted she had wanted to join for a long time, but didn't want to be a burden. Hearing that, Yuke welcomed her into the party without hesitation. Mamar gave Nene a warm goodbye hug, officially sending her off with Yuke and Clover. On their way out, Nene handed Yuke a letter from Silk. After reading it, he quietly folded it away and told everyone they should go check on Jamie right away. At the same time, Jamie was busy doing some surprisingly high-level organizing. When they knocked and entered her room, Yuke praised her efficiency. The place had been abandoned for a long time, and since it was now her new base, she was rearranging everything. Jamie mentioned it would take her about a week to finish organizing, which stunned Nene. She immediately admitted it would have taken her a whole year. Jamie then thanked Yuke for giving her a chance to work at the guild. After that, Yuke told her that Silk wanted her to come by the party base once she was done. Since Jamie was almost finished anyway, she decided to head out with Yuke and Nene. Along the way, they talked about the snow, which suddenly triggered memories for Yuke of playing in the snow with Simon as a kid. His mood dropped instantly. When the girls asked what was wrong, he brushed it off, but they could tell what was on his mind and reminded him that he was making everyone worry. When they reached home, Yuke surprised them by saying, "Ladies first," which caught them off guard since that wasn't like him at all. As soon as they opened the door, they were greeted with a surprise party welcoming Jamie and Nene to Clover. Both of them felt slightly betrayed when they realized Yuke had known about it the whole time, but he admitted he couldn't say anything. Nene was thrilled to finally be there, but Jamie felt undeserving, believing she didn't belong after everything Thunder Pike had done to Yuke. The group reassured her, telling her the past didn't matter and that they were starting fresh as a new party. That was enough to bring her to tears. The celebration continued with a big feast, and during dinner, Marina pointed out that Clover now had 6 members, meaning the name might not make sense anymore. Jamie quickly corrected her, explaining that there were rare clover flowers with 6 leaves, so the name still worked perfectly. Later, Yuke walked Jamie back, and the two talked about their early days in Thunder Pike before everything fell apart. Yuke admitted he became who he was because of that party, but Jamie replied that Thunder Pike was already gone. Yuke blamed himself, but Jamie told him they were all at fault. They had mistaken his efforts for their own strength. She apologized again, and promised to give everything she had to support Clover moving forward. Back at home, Yuke found Rain washing dishes and offered to help. As they worked together, she teased him about how it felt like a newlywed scene, leaving him flustered. The moment turned sweet, and before stepping away, Rain told him she was waiting for his answer, giving him a quick peck. When another girl's voice suddenly echoed nearby, Yuke bolted away in embarrassment. After a month-long suspension, Yuke visited the guild and greeted Mommer. She revealed that a brand new dungeon had been discovered in the city, something that hadn't happened in over 10 years. Shocked, Yuke asked where it was located, and she explained it was near a lake by the trading city of Duna. She suggested Clover use it for their comeback stream, especially since the kingdom had personally requested them to be the first to investigate due to their success in achromatic darkness. Yuke said he needed to discuss it with the team first. On his way home, Marina immediately noticed his expression and told him he'd found a good quest. Rain said the same thing as soon as she saw him, and Silk picked up on it too, completely ruining his plan to reveal it over dinner. He ended up telling Silk everything instead. She was surprised but excited, saying it would be the perfect comeback for the party. She encouraged him to accept the quest and gather all the details as their leader. Before he left, she jokingly teased him about wanting attention like Rain, then quickly brushed it off. With his excitement building, Yuke rushed back to the guild. Eager for the new journey, Clover was about to begin, this time on a quest requested directly by the kingdom. Once everything was ready, the group officially began their journey. Nearly 2 weeks later, they finally arrived in Duna, a lively trading city that would serve as their temporary hub. The moment they entered the marketplace, the girls immediately got distracted, staring around in awe at the flashy stalls and luxury shops, like it was their first time seeing money being spent freely. Yuke, doing his best to act like a capable leader and clearly running on an empty stomach, suggested they try the local food before getting serious. Rain quickly noticed how crowded the city was with adventurers, and Yuke realized the news about the newly discovered dungeon had already spread fast. One group stood out more than the rest, the Solarians. Yuke explained that they cared deeply about bloodlines and social rank, which was obvious from how they dressed and carried themselves. Marina then brought up the idea of matching party gear so everyone could instantly recognize them as one group. The suggestion got everyone excited, and Yuke agreed to design it, already thinking about how to make the accessories practical instead of just looking cool. After that, Yuke and Silk headed to the Adventurers Guild while the rest of the team waited at a nearby pub. Inside, they met the guild master, an elderly woman named Manuela, who looked like she'd lived through far too many rough years. Silk pushed for details about the mission, and Manuela casually told them they were free to explore however they wanted and could keep any rewards they found. While Silk focused on negotiations, Yuke kept silently analyzing Manuela, trying to read her strength. She caught on instantly and called him out for staring, forcing him to apologize. Then she surprised him by revealing the truth. She was a legendary adventurer who had once reached the final floor of the Achromatic Darkness dungeon. She also revealed she had traveled with both Benwood and Saga, who happened to be Yuke's uncle. The revelation left Yuke shaken. Manuela laughed it off, told him not to be so tense, wished them luck, and handed over directions to their lodging. When Yuke returned to the others, he found Marina and the girls surrounded by a group of Samutarian men, stirring up trouble. The men were loudly talking in their own language, leaving bystanders confused. Marina explained they were being pressured to serve drinks and treated disrespectfully. Seeing what was happening, Yuke tried to cool things down by speaking in his very rough Samutarian. Unfortunately, his words came out far worse than intended. He boldly claimed the girls were his wives and bragged about being with them every night. The Samutarians immediately stiffened, panicked, and backed away without another word. Everyone else was confused except Rain, who understood exactly what he'd said. Still annoyed, Rain and Nene followed Yuke toward their hotel. Along the way, Yuke explained that Samutarian culture viewed women as possessions, which was why the men acted so boldly. However, messing with another man's property carried heavy punishment, which was why they ran the moment he spoke. Marina found the situation amusing and told Yuke to hurry up and finish those matching cloaks so everyone would know they belonged together. Rain, meanwhile, bluntly told him his Samutarian was terrible, but instead of explaining how, she burst out laughing and refused to clarify. They eventually arrived at their hotel, where the elven manager immediately revealed herself to be a huge fan of the Clover party. She excitedly explained that the guild was paying for everything, meaning they could order whatever they wanted without worrying about costs. The entire hotel had been reserved just for them, and they were free to choose any room on the second floor. Before letting them settle in, the manager proudly showed off the hotel's highlight, a hot spring in the backyard. Nene was the only one who had used one before, and she instantly lit up, eagerly explaining how it worked and inviting everyone to relax together before dinner like a proper adventure group. The next morning, Yuke and Silk held a strategy meeting to plan their dungeon run. They agreed to stick with what worked during the Achromatic Darkness expedition, live streaming everything. Their assignment was to explore up to the 5th floor, after which the dungeon would be open to the public. Silk shared what little information they had and reminded everyone that 2 other parties were also on the same mission, meaning time mattered. Yuke, however, told everyone not to rush. The rival teams were more experienced, and trying to compete head-on would only get them killed faster. His plan was to reach the 2nd floor on the first day, then return to thoroughly explore the 1st floor to better understand what awaited them deeper inside. He also warned Nene that her airflow artifact might be useless if the dungeon was water-based, advising her to come up with a backup navigation method. He wrapped things up by telling everyone to finish preparations by the end of the day, since they'd depart early the next morning. When the day arrived, they headed to the dungeon entrance, where Manuela was waiting at a nearby observation area. Marina asked if the dungeon had a name, but Manuela explained it didn't yet, since no one knew what was inside. She suggested Clover might be the ones to name it themselves, which immediately fired everyone up at the thought of making history. With excitement running high, they approached the entrance. Yuke started the live stream, announcing to the world that Clover was about to enter a completely unexplored dungeon. The team stepped inside, buzzing with anticipation about what kind of monsters they might face. Not long after, Nene returned with a report, saying she'd found something she couldn't identify. Surprised, Yuke followed her around a corner, where she revealed strange floating chains using a mirror. Yuke had never seen anything like it either, but decided the smartest move was obviously to attack it first. He boosted the team with magic, and they charged in. The chain creature immediately became hostile as soon as they entered its range. Yuke struck it with his signature spell while Marina and Nene moved in close, but their attacks did nothing. Yuke followed up with multiple spells that finally forced the floating chains to drop. When the monster tried to retaliate, Rain intercepted with a thunder strike, creating an opening. Marina then finished it off with her strongest attack, slicing straight through the chains and cleaving the core clean in half. After the battle ended, Yuke tried to piece together what they had just fought, and asked Rain and Silk for their thoughts. Neither of them could explain it, so Yuke decided this mystery was better handled by Royal Academy scholars later. For now, he gathered fragments from the creature for examination. While searching the remains, Rain noticed something glimmering. Yuke picked it up and realized it was an unusual ring that even his appraisal skill failed to recognize, so he kept it for later. Nene moved ahead to scout, while the rest of them discussed how unnatural the encounter felt. Marina said the enemy didn't feel like a monster at all, and explained that her samurai abilities let her sense something human about it. Rain agreed, pointing out that regular monsters always left behind magic stones, but this one dropped nothing. Soon after, Nene returned with shocking news. She had found the stairs to the 2nd floor, but they were going upward instead of down. She also discovered a strange research space that clearly didn't belong in a dungeon. Yuke found a book inside a drawer, and after Rain confirmed it wasn't cursed, he opened it. The writing was in a completely unknown language that none of them could read. Deciding to pause and regroup, they headed toward the stairway's safe zone. As soon as Yuke saw the bright lights there, his body reacted before his mind could. The glow triggered memories of his fight with Simon, and he immediately cut the live stream, telling everyone to calm down. He didn't want the audience witnessing his moment of weakness. After resting for a while, Yuke felt steadier and explained what had happened. The girls crowded around him in concern, but he reassured them that he was okay. They moved on to the second floor and found themselves in what looked like a well-kept city. The sight made Yuke uneasy, reminding him too much of a chromatic darkness. Sensing danger, he told everyone they needed to leave right away, just as a calm voice agreed with him. The group instantly went on alert as an old wizard appeared out of thin air. He introduced himself as Loge, claiming to be a forgotten old man, left behind in a ruined world. When Yuke asked why he was living in the dungeon, Loge seemed amused and said he didn't think of this place as a dungeon at all. He explained, the city was once known as the City of Joy, and claimed the king and citizens were still there, though not in a way their minds could understand. Before disappearing, Loge called Yuke by his full name, even though Yuke had never given it. Panic set in immediately, especially when Yuke felt Persephone's curse react. He told everyone to leave at once. That was when Marina noticed an unconscious girl lying nearby. They exited the dungeon immediately, and Yuke went straight to report everything to Maniela and the Royal Academy scholars. To his shock, the scholars said Loge never appeared in the live stream footage, suggesting the party may have hallucinated him. Later, Maniela took Yuke aside and revealed that an all-girls party had abandoned the dungeon after several members became sick just by entering. When she asked Yuke what he thought, he said the dungeon felt like an entirely different world, possibly even worse than a chromatic darkness. Maniela agreed and told him to trust his instinct. When Yuke returned inside, he found Rain completely devastated. She had received a letter from her grandfather. Through tears, Rain revealed her past. She was born out of wedlock, and her mother had been cast out of a noble family. After her mother died, Rain somehow made it into the Magic Academy and later became an adventurer. Now, the same grandfather who had never acknowledged her was suddenly ordering her to return home. Yuke read the letter himself and felt his anger rise. Her grandfather had arranged her marriage to the second prince of Salutaria and still referred to her as a disgrace, telling her to be grateful for the chance to serve the family. The letter left everyone furious. Right after that, Marina casually dropped an idea that was almost laughably simple. She said they could just pretend the letter never existed. She pointed out that Rain's name wasn't written anywhere on it, meaning it technically wasn't addressed to her at all. As dumb as it sounded, Yuke instantly agreed. He burned the letter on the spot and declared that without physical proof, it might as well have never reached them. The tension melted off Rain immediately, and she broke down crying as she hugged him tightly. Later on, Yuke asked Rain to step outside for a private talk. He admitted he had a bold and reckless idea to permanently shield her from her toxic family. Without easing into it, he suddenly asked her to marry him. He explained that under Samutarian law, marriage meant legal ownership, which would stop anyone from that country from claiming her. Rain didn't hesitate at all. She accepted instantly, agreeing to become his wife even if it was only a technical arrangement. The next morning, Maniela informed Yuke that the marriage had already been approved. She joked that she highly doubted the relationship would remain fake for long. With that issue settled, Yuke and the group returned to the dungeon to continue investigating the strange city on the second floor. As usual, Nene went ahead to scout, but she quickly came running back in a panic. When the group followed her, they were met with a disturbing sight: towering pillars, each holding a large cocoon. Rain could feel dark, corrupted mana leaking from them, similar to what they had sensed from the chain monster before. Nene volunteered to approach one, but as she got closer, eye-like patterns on the surface began to hypnotize her. Suddenly, a massive mouth split open and lunged toward her, but Yuke reacted instantly and yanked her back to safety. Realizing close-range combat was too risky, Yuke ordered everyone to fight from a distance. Marina prepared her crossbow, Silk knocked her arrows, and Rain focused on ice magic. After strengthening the party with physical enchantments, Yuke charged forward. The cocoon creatures tried to ensnare him with their hypnotic gaze, but he countered with a flash spell, then followed it up with a stronger blindness enchantment to shut their vision down. Marina and Silk fired immediately, destroying 3 of the 4 monsters. Rain attacked the final cocoon with ice magic, but it had no effect. Seeing this, Marina took matters into her own hands and rushed in, unleashing her ultimate technique, while Yuke and Nene supported her from behind. Once the creatures were defeated, they dropped golden rings instead of the usual magic stones. Yuke noticed the pattern and wondered why these enemies kept dropping rings instead. After the battle, Marina went silent. When Yuke asked if she was okay, she admitted she needed time to think. Sensing something wasn't right, Yuke suggested they rest inside a nearby building and temporarily stop the live stream. During their break, Marina shared something deeply unsettling. When she struck the cocoon creature, it felt like cutting into human flesh. Even worse, The pillar connected to it felt the same way. She suspected this was tied to her samurai ability, which hadn't fully awakened yet. Yuke suggested testing it on something else nearby, but Marina said she had already tried without clear results. Silk added that the spirits weren't responding properly in this area, similar to what she felt in the grave field of achromatic darkness. Rain agreed, pointing out that the mana throughout the city felt unnatural. Acknowledging everyone's unease, Yuke suggested they head up to a rooftop to get a better view of the city before deciding their next move. Standing above the city, Yuke made the call that they would check the central castle and then stop their investigation for the day. As they headed through the empty streets, the silence felt wrong. There were no voices, no footsteps, no signs that anyone had ever lived there. The unease brought back memories of their meeting with Loge, and Yuke tried to convince himself that the old man hadn't been real. Rain shut that idea down right away. She reminded everyone that Loge had given her a sanity ring, a protective item that blocked mental interference completely. Since hallucinations wouldn't work on her, Loge couldn't have been imaginary. That led the group to another conclusion because he never appeared on their livestream. Loge must have been tampering with their recording equipment somehow. Before they could debate it further, they saw Loge standing calmly in front of the castle gates. When they demanded to know what was wrong with the city, he simply brushed it off and claimed everything was normal. Yuke pressed him harder, asking if the creatures they fought had once been human. Instead of answering, Loge drifted into vague, philosophical talk about the meaning of humanity. Growing irritated, Rain changed tactics and asked about the golden rings. Loge continued rambling without giving anything useful, then casually said they would meet again before disappearing. Right after that, the castle gates opened on their own. The group agreed to do a quick sweep inside before calling it a day. Later, Yuke went over the recordings and castle structure with Viscom Bodman, the Royal Academy supervisor, and Maniela. At this point, they all accepted that Loge had been real. Maniela praised Yuke for how he handled the situation. Bodman then shared his analysis of the golden rings, confirming they were created from human sources. Yuke pointed out that this matched Marina's earlier suspicions perfectly. Maniela explained that if dungeon monsters were truly created from humans, access to the dungeon would need to be restricted to elite adventurers only. When Yuke added that Marina had sensed human presence inside the pillars as well, both Maniela and Bodman were visibly shaken. Bodman then brought up the all-girls adventuring party that had tried entering the dungeon earlier but withdrew after several members fell ill. Even more disturbing, he revealed that viewers watching Clover's livestream had experienced similar symptoms, from mild fevers to sudden violent behavior. This led him to suspect that the broadcast itself was being affected. That immediately reminded Yuke of Loge describing the second floor as a city stained by twilight. Yuke became convinced the glowing golden light throughout the city was the source of these abnormalities, even though he had no way to prove it yet. Maniela explained that while the kingdom needed time to decide the dungeon's fate, Clover would still be required to continue investigating it. After agreeing to proceed, Yuke stepped out of the meeting tent only to be stopped by Nene, who rushed up to him in a panic. She told him the girl they had rescued from the dungeon had finally woken up, and that she was glowing like a star. Yuke stepped into the tent and stopped cold. The girl they had rescued was now hovering in midair, wrapped in a brilliant golden glow that lit the entire space. She looked down at him and said she'd been waiting for his arrival. She introduced herself as the former Golden Priestess, and her first message was a dire one. Their world was inching toward a catastrophic event known as the culling, a phenomenon that would erase nearly all life. She explained that the eerie dungeon city they explored was only a preview of what would eventually happen to their world. Sooner or later, everything would be swallowed by a golden twilight and left completely barren. However, Yuke and his team were partially protected from this corruption thanks to their dimensional crossing within the achromatic darkness dungeon. Because of that experience, the twilight couldn't easily affect them unless they traveled too deep into its territory. The priestess urged them to find Loge, insisting he carried essential knowledge that could help them stop the disaster. When the girls complained about Loge's confusing, roundabout way of talking, the priestess insisted they would need to push him until he stopped dodging the truth. Rain then asked why she was revealing all of this to them specifically. The priestess admitted the Twilight outbreak began because of her own civilization. Their king's greed for an eternal golden age unleashed the very force now threatening to destroy Yuke's world. She pleaded with Yuke to confront the Golden King and destroy the treasure responsible for the Twilight, saying it was the only chance to avert global ruin. As her light began to fade, the girl gently descended to the floor. The divine aura disappeared, and the girl introduced herself as Rune, now sounding completely different. She explained that the priestess only used her body as a medium to communicate, and she had no memory of what had just happened. Understanding the urgency, Yuke immediately reported everything to the authorities. A week later, he was summoned by the director of the Royal Academy, who traveled personally after reviewing Bodman's findings. The director led Yuke deep into the royal vault, where ancient murals had been sealed away for generations. The carvings depicted a lone hero facing a colossal threat that endangered the entire world. The director explained that countless parallel worlds existed, and when two of them collided, one world was completely erased. This catastrophic phenomenon was the culling. He believed the Golden King was intentionally steering his world toward a collision with theirs, making immediate preparation necessary. According to the murals, whenever a world faced a culling, a chosen hero emerged to stop it. Since Yuke was the one who uncovered the truth behind the Golden City and the Twilight corruption, the director declared him the chosen hero destined to protect their world. Yuke was almost die in shock. And that's it for today's video, guys. Make sure you must clap the subscribe button, watch the following video, and I will catch you in the next one.